A very good morning, everyone. We're delighted to have you all join us for today's event. Very good morning. Can we have the looping video stop? Okay, wonderful. You're all welcome. A very good morning. And as usual, we'd like to kick things off with the national anthem of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So please stand by for that. The Executive Governor of Kano State, Executive Governor Abdullahi Umar Ganduje, OFR, represented today by Dr. Yusuf Jibrin Ruman, who is the Commissioner of Agriculture in Kano State, the Honorable Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Dr. Muhammad Mahmoud Abubakar, the Managing Director of Crown Farm Mills and Country Olam Agri Nigeria, Mr. Ashish Pandey, all our other distinguished partners and speakers, ladies and gentlemen, you're all welcome to this latest edition of a project that has great consequence for our nation and indeed the West African region today. My name is Wale Famero. I'm delighted to be moderating today's program as we look further at attempts to make indeed Nigeria and the West African region a lot more self-sufficient with respect to food production. Now, today our focus is on the production of wheat, and we are going to be unpacking the efforts made so far to ensure that we can weather the storms that we are seeing across the world today a lot better, especially in future cycles. I think we're all witnesses of the impact of the Russia-Ukraine conflict on our world in so many diverse ways, but perhaps more significant today is its impact on food production. And it really just emphasizes the importance of what we're doing today. So I'm really delighted to be moderating today's program, and we thank everyone that has joined us thus far. Just a few housekeeping issues for your information, and this session is being recorded, so please note that. But beyond that, this is designed as an interactive session, so we do welcome your comments and questions. I want to encourage you as we proceed with the program today to drop your comments in the Q&A field on the platform. And we look forward to engaging with our speakers as we continue to look back at what we've achieved so far and the challenges ahead of us. So without further ado, we'd like to make this a very efficient program. I'd like to now welcome to deliver a goodwill message to kick things off, the Honorable Minister Muhammad Mahmoud Abubakar. Minister Abubakar, are you with us, sir? Okay, I understand that the minister has not been able to connect with us just yet. So we'll proceed with the program, and to deliver his goodwill message, representing the Executive Governor of Kano State, Executive Governor Abdullahi Umar Ganduje, we have representing him the Commissioner for Agriculture in Kano State to share a few words about today's program. Please welcome Dr. Yusuf Jibrin Ruman.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, permit me to stand on the existing protocol. On behalf of His Excellency, the Executive Governor of Kano State, I welcome all the participants to the first year's report and stakeholders engagement. Under the leadership of His Excellency, Dr. Abdullahi Umar Ganduje, wheat farmers were given all the enabling environment. So it's working closely with the national president and the state chairman of wheat farmers in addressing most of their problems, especially seed. I wish all the participants a happy deliberation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ruman, for those kind words and for, of course, partnering with Olam and other stakeholders today as we really address what is, as I mentioned earlier, something that should be very important to us as a nation and indeed a sub-region in West Africa. All right, on that note, we would like to listen to now some opening remarks from the Managing Director of Crown Flour Mills, Mr. Ashish Pandey. And I think if you are ready, Mr. Pandey, we'll probably have you perhaps set the tone for us as we proceed with the rest of the event.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, everybody. The Honorable Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Alhaji Mohammed Mahmood Abu Bakr, the Honorable Chairman, House of Representatives, Committee on Agriculture Colleges and Institutions, Alhaji Munir Baba Dan Agundi, as the Director of the Lake Chad Research Institute, Dr. Al-Hassan T.S. Benugu, and Wheat Breeding Research Specialist engaged in the Seeds for the Future project, President of the Wheat Farming Association of Nigeria, Alhaji Salim Saleh Muhammad, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, everybody. On behalf of the Olam management, Olam Agri Nigeria, and also Crown Flour Mill, I'd like to formally welcome you to the Olam Agri Green webinar series, Season 3. And here in this, we are focusing on the first year report today for the Seeds for the Future Wheat Trial project. We are indeed honored that you have actually taken some time and tried to attend to this important event. And we have carefully chosen the theme, harnessing the key lessons for our shared experiences critical to meet our set targets, which underlines the importance for this community to the success of the current and future efforts. The event basically provides Olam Agri with a platform not only to formally introduce the first year report for Seeds for the Future initiative, as all of you are key stakeholders in the wheat value chain, but also to help us to share some experiences, our knowledge, our ideas, and also, provide innovative solutions to the challenges which are facing in this sector. More important, if you really see in today's scenario with the situation globally, there's a lot of recession and there's a lot of disruptions in the wheat value chain, I would say, in the entire food value chain and in the supply chain. And in this, I would believe that, it is a time where we need to find ways to grow the wheat crop locally. And therefore, during these challenging times, we are forced to look inwards. And I believe this initiative, which we had taken about a couple of, about a year and a half ago, has really is really a step in the right direction. And it's also it's also for us to understand that it's a genuine interest which we really want to invest in the wheat value chain in Nigeria. We all understand, we know that it's not going to be a one-year journey. It's going to take a decade, I believe, in order for us to have any tangible, real benefits coming out of it. But we need to take this step. We need to go on this journey. And as a company, we are very much committed, and we think it's a step in the right direction for everybody. So thank you. I will not want to take any more of your time. And here I would say that let's get on to the discussion and let's hear our experts in terms of their first year report and their progress so far. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pandey, for setting the tone for us. And we certainly look forward to unpacking the key details of that report, and we'll be moving on to that a little later. But just before that, I'd like to turn everyone's attention to a short video compliments of Olam.
Imagine a world where poverty in rural agricultural communities no longer exists, where people and biodiversity are not competing for land, where scientific research doubles crop yield. But today, imagination is not enough. Instead, the world finds itself at a turning point. If we don't address the situation now, the consequence will be a disruption of food, water, and resource security, and a severe contraction of the global economy. We need fundamental change on a global scale. Agribusiness must be part of the solution. And this is why Olam is reimagining global agriculture. We have the ambition to address these challenges in imaginative ways. And there are huge rewards to be won, and won by all. Olam is already embracing the need for change, with a purpose that places the world's needs at the heart of our business strategy. We are focused on outcomes for people, planet, and prosperity. So we're putting technology in the hands of smallholders through the Olam Farmer Information System, promoting prosperous farmers and supporting their farming systems. We're also deploying cutting-edge technology to reduce the water usage of California and Australia's almond orchards, contributing to regenerating the living world. And Olam is supporting many thriving communities. For example, in Gabon, we've employed over 7,000 Gabonese, 60% of whom have never had a regular job, thereby kick-starting an agricultural economy. The need for transformation in agribusiness is clear and present, and Olam is ideally positioned to lead the change through our spirit of disruption and empowering culture of entrepreneurship, our global reach and scale, our undeniable expertise, our unmatched presence at the farm gate, our commitment to the livelihoods of farmers, and the advancement of the communities in which they live. But we can't do this alone. It's time to reimagine together. And to reimagine our world, we must reimagine our whole industry. And to reimagine our whole industry, we must start by reimagining our operations in our own. Colleagues and friends, now it's time to reimagine global agriculture.
Indeed, it is a time for us to imagine together. And indeed, as was noted in the video, imagination is not enough. And it's great to see the impact of what Olam is doing in Nigeria and, of course, the broader West African region. And we look forward to unpack this project a lot further. And we'd like to move on right into that. To get, if you like, a progress report on this project, I'd like to now welcome the lead researcher and principal research officer at the Lake Chad Research Institute at our LCRI in Maiduguri, Dr. Kachala Kiarimala, and he will be making a presentation very shortly. So it's over to you, Dr. Kiarimala.
Thank you, Famirewa. I want to share my screen. Can you enable me?
Can we enable Dr.
I want to share my screen. Yeah.
Yes, they should allow you to do that very shortly. In fact, I will suggest, can you try that again now? Can you try? You should be able to.
Yes.
All right, please go ahead, sir.
Yes, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Permit me to stand on the already established protocols. Seed for the Future project, it is actually a project between Crown Flour Mills, subsidiary of Olam, Nigeria, and Lecture Research Institute. So this far-reaching initiative seeks to use a participative approach to integrate farmers as drivers for change. It is also to identify the best wheat varieties as well as agronomic practices to deliver top harvest. Before the commencement of the project, critical stakeholders were actually engaged to seek for their approval and advice on the goals set by the project. So several suggestions were gathered and incorporated into the project. At the end of the day, the overall the project set goals and its cost structure was seen as aligned within the larger investment being promoted by Federal Government of Nigeria as well as Central Bank of Nigeria. So for us to understand the reality on ground, we actually conducted a detailed survey across 4 villages and interviewed 40 farmers, of which are 15 female and 25 males, with the age ranging from 15 to 57 years old. So each farm household houses on average 4 to 5 adults and 5 children for a total of 10 people, depending on their farm in an area of 1.7 hectare. The survey we've conducted, we actually wanted to understand the farming system used by the interviewed set. They were requested to explain the cultural rotation. So it's revealed that range-fed rice is harvested between late October to actually early November. And also we are made to understand that irrigated rice is being planted in early March to late April. Hence, wheat can be grown between November to March, and this in conformity with the optimum planting window for wheat production in Nigeria. So most of those farmers were actually cultivating wheat already. So most of them do so in rotation with 2 seasons of rice, that is the rain-fed and irrigated, while very few of them do in one rotation. Since all of them are already cultivating wheat, the survey actually used to deepen the understanding of their preferences and experiences. Farmers of above 4 years actually achieve yield above optimum tons per hectare. So despite bullock handlage being having highest yield, but the farmers actually preferred normal as widely being cultivated by both sexes. And in terms of yield achievement, there's no much difference in terms of the yield between the male and the female farmers. So the group we interviewed
We seem to have lost your audio, sir. Or is it just me?
Okay.
Okay, I'm not sure, but I cannot color anymore. Okay, I think we may have lost him. We may have lost him, and it's unfortunate, but I believe he will reconnect very shortly, and probably obviously giving some very valuable insights into where the project is right now. But perhaps while we wait for him to reconnect, maybe we can hear from someone else who is very close to this project, and he was actually scheduled to provide a project debrief right after Dr. Mala. He is none other than the project lead and senior scientist at the International Center for the Agricultural Research in the Dry Regions, otherwise known as ICARDA, Dr. Filippo Bassi. So it's over to you, Dr. Bassi, if you could perhaps take it from where Dr. Mala left off.
Yes, thank you very much. I think Kachel is reconnecting, but I do believe my presentation fits acceptably well before he, so I will continue maybe,
Sure.
if that's okay with you.
If you can.
All right, I'm trying to share my screen now. I do see additional
I'm
guests
back,
joining.
Happy.
I don't know if you want me to.
Yes,
go
I'm back.
Oh, he is back now. Okay. We lost
Yes.
you momentarily. So
Yeah,
perhaps,
I had some.
Filippo,
I
if you
had
don't
some
mind,
technical
stop sharing so he can reconnect. I know you are sharing right now.
Yes.
Filippo?
Yes,
Dr.
please.
Bassi, if you can allow him share his screen. So you need to stop sharing, I believe. Okay. You can try now. Dr. Mala, you can try to share your screen now. We lost you, but I think you've reconnected now. You are muted. We can't hear you. So, all right. I think it's coming up. But you'll need to unmute so we can hear you.
Yes. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you, Dr. Mala. Please go ahead.
Yes. Very sorry for this technical hitch.
It's okay. Please go ahead, sir.
Yes. So we understand the farming system used by the interview said that they were requested to actually explain their cultural rotation. So we made to understand that rice is being harvested in the month of October to November, and also irrigated rice is being planted in the month of March to April. Hence, the planting window for wheat was actually November to March, within 90 to 100 days. So since the farmers are already cultivating wheat, most of them do sow in rotation in 2 rice seasons. That is rain-fed rice and then the irrigated rice, while few cultivate only 1 season of rice. So we also, the survey result actually also revealed the preferences of actually the farmers. So farmers would experience above 4 years in cultivating wheat achieve optimum tons per hectare. And despite Bullock 100 being the variety that gave highest yield, but almost all the farmers preferred Norman. And then there's not much a difference between the yield achievement among the male and the female farmers. So the group of farmers we also interviewed understand that the common management practices they actually do in terms of herbicide strategy. So majority of them apply pre-emergence butaculo and post-emergence 2,4-D. Very few do apply only 2,4-D, and then about six out of the 40 farmers were doing manual weeding. So under this irrigation strategy, majority of the farmers practice weekly irrigation, but majority of them do it in the day, while few do it in the night. So also under fertilizer application, so majority of them apply NPK 15-15 plus 1 dose of urea, and then some apply NPK 15-15 plus 2 split dose of urea at 4 weeks and 8 weeks after planting. But very few of them apply NPK 20-10-10 plus 1 dose of urea. So there's also many seed origin for wheat. You can see there's Sharps, CBN, Ankoborua, all this and that. So there's also most of the harvests are being sold at the market gate, where the wheat straw is used as fodder for animal feed. So we also tried to understand the issues identified for wheat cultivation. So they highlighted 2 main issues. Number 1 issue was the farmers do not have enough money after the rain-fed rice to start with before selling their rice harvest. As you know, rain-fed rice is being harvested in the month of October to November. So November is a planting date for wheat, so they do not have enough money during that period. And the second issue is wheat actually prevents timely planting of with irrigated rice, which is more profitable than wheat. Other issues were also in terms of wheat production. We are made to understand that there is need for early maturing varieties to avoid delaying the planting of rice. There's also cases of bed damages. So in summary, rice is the main crop and we should not interfere with it. And then we are also made to understand that the experience in wheat cultivation will only require 3 to 4 years at most to produce wheat and achieve optimum yield. As at that time of our survey, a ton of wheat actually sold at average in the market for 330,000 naira as at then. But I know currently it's almost getting to 400,000 naira. And as at then, it is equivalent to 750 USD, which is more than double the current international price. So there's need to revise the fertilization in order to deliver grain protein to millers rather than yield. So the issues they raise in terms of wheat production, in terms of wheat adoption. So we profile solutions, and these are the 3 solutions that we think can be done. So early maturing varieties needed to be promoted to facilitate adoption of wheat. Form of microcredits or contract farming need to put in place to help the adoption of wheat. Wheat herbicide needs to be imported because the butterfly and the 2,4-D were actually overstretched. So the sum of
Okay, I think we are struggling to hear you again, sir. Okay, unfortunately, we lost him again towards the end there, but I do believe he was wrapping up, and I think the key messages were summarized towards the end there. There's still some good progress, but clearly a lot more work to be done, especially if Nigeria is to produce wheat at prices that are competitive internationally. Thank you so much for that presentation, Dr. Kala. We'd like to now move over to Dr. Filippo Bassi. I did introduce him earlier, and Dr. Filippo, apologies for cutting you off there just now, but you can please share your screen again and deliver your view of this project. Thank you so much.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, distinguished guests. I see colleagues and friends, and I see questions already coming in, so I'm very pleased with that. It's a shame that Dr. Kachala could not complete this address because he had a couple of points more on the agronomic practices, but I think the key message is there. And in reality, we really want to have this presentation first to give an idea of the whole project. The Seeds for the Future project that aims at using female cooperatives as drivers to boost the wheat value chain in Nigeria. So this is a little drop in the big sea of investment that Nigeria is doing to make wheat cultivation a reality. So, you know, I showed this slide in the past, but I think it's useful to keep it in mind that the farmers are at the center of a rather complex system of value chain where you have pressure of import and subsidies, and you have policies that actually impact the way farmers cultivate. You have the importers, you have the millers. You know, we heard the price in Nigeria is about, 3 times. Well, now it's almost matching the international price of wheat, but at the time was much, much more expensive than what imported wheat would cost. So that's something that the millers need to consider when they try to produce good flour for the consumers that, of course, they're not always ready to pay 2-3 times the price unless there's a reason made. So, of course, it's a fair question. If I'm a Nigerian farmer, should I really cultivate wheat, or should I stick maybe to rice or maize or to other crops? So what I call the linear, but it's not linear, system is that people like myself, researchers, try to develop, and Kachala and many others try to develop innovations, technology that help farmers produce more, better harvest, and then the millers can use to give a high quality hopefully low carbon emission flour to the consumers. And of course, it all comes back with the feedback, a loop system where the consumers tell the millers whether or not the flour is good, the millers tell the farmers whether or not the grains are good, and then the farmers tell the scientists whether or not the technology have any value. And of course, there's a lot of external influences, so this is not a linear. Often enough, we jump from consumers to scientists and so forth. But something that I always want to keep in mind is that seed is a business. And if it's good seed, it's a good business. Otherwise, it isn't. And when you think about, producing wheat, if you want to achieve 100,000 hectares of production, you need about 1/10 of that of farmers willing to produce the seeds for the others to plant. And just to move that amount of seed needs, more than 250 trucks just to move it around. And this is for 100,000 hectares. If you want to achieve 1 million, those numbers multiply by 10 and complexity is there. So there is a business within it. So the way this project approaches it, which is, again, is a small investment compared to what the larger government is investing in trying to achieve this, we try to work at another level of unit. Instead of looking at the nation, we look at the village. And we use the village as our unit. So the idea, instead of producing this total amount overall, we try to have 100 villages, each producing 100 tons on 100 hectares. And then ideally we get the same place. And just to give you an idea, this is what one village should need to be able to produce in order to serve itself in terms of seed, assuming, a village of 1,000 hectares. So this Olam Crown Flour Milling Nigeria has agreed to make an investment of 300 million naira over a period of 10 years. And this is year one. So we're really at the beginning of this project, but it's very important for us to get a continual feedback system. That's something we try to be very participatory in the way we do things, trying to move together with the stakeholders and the farmers. So this is where the project invests, right on the top of this value chain, the interaction between the farmers and the researcher, trying to deliver technology that do make sense. And then ideally, if this works, then we are trying to, if we produce enough harvest at the right price, then we are creating a market. If we are creating a market, the millers are intervening to buy this market, and therefore the consumers get high quality, local, low emission flour, because, let's not forget, the climate change is a reality, but prevent it from becoming even more is a must. And on top of that, with the difficulties that we hear with this Russian-Ukrainian war, and not only that, and Canada losing half of their harvest, and California burning, and many other examples around the world, I think for a nation, food security is a right. It's not just something that we should look at, but is a right. People have the right to the food security, have the right to the bread. And so it's very important that we put in place technologies to make it happen. So one element that we add to this linear system is the rural association, which of course are very well engaged in the system. But the idea is that we engage farming in the decision process, and then we try to train what we call community-based seed enterprises. So it's a very small unit in the overall total scale of a nation. And we try to use these communities as the unit to drive our change, because this is the investment that we're trying to make. And if this works, the rural association then will be the one that will do the job for us in reaching out to their neighbors that are very close to them, right? The neighboring farmers, to scale out the solutions and hopefully raise productivity, generate income. And that's how we're trying to touch Nigerian farmers, rather than, we have a small investment to make. So we are doing it bottom up rather than top down. This is just a short report of year one. These on the left are the items that we want to achieve, which we have been able to achieve. This picture here shows what some of the Icarda varieties were performing in terms of yield. In Nigeria, this is the black bar, but also in Mauritania and Senegal, which are two acceptably similar agroecologies. And you can see that this line, Bob, Tilejan, and Ophimilmus were the preferred one. So these are the ones that we try to multiply right away at the lake, now at the station of the Lake Child Research Institute. So this is the work of Kachal and his team. And we were able to confirm the two of them were actually yielding more than Norman and Altar that you see down here. So these two were actually confirmed. The third one was not. So these two are actually the ones that are moving forward. And we have produced nucleus seed for them 10 kilos. And this year we are producing breeder seeds, a quintal, and then things are really to get interesting. The second investment that this project does is around the agronomic practices. The first goal for us was to define what those practices were, and you heard it very well from Kachala. Early varieties seems to be really a recurrent theme. Farmers really looking at adding wheat in their system rather than replacing rice in their system, which of course makes full sense. And to do that, they're less concerned with yield and much more concerned with the fact that if the wheat season is too long, then they actually cannot plant rice timely, and then they lose yield on rice, and they're not happy about that. So, so this is something very, very important. It came up very, very strong in our survey that Kachal explained so well. But there are other elements of that survey that we want to apply as well. So there's another elements where each year we try new material, right? New germplasm, trying to find the best variety that we can. And so you have them distributed here in terms of maturity and grain yield. And the center here is what the variety Norman looks like. So this is tested by Lake Chad this year. So we said maximum is 100 days for any variety. So any variety that takes more than 100 days, we cannot promote because farmers don't like it. And of course, we want to yield more than Norman. So everything that is here means that is earlier than the variety Norman and yields more. So for instance, you have this line here produces almost a ton per hectare more than Norman in 1 or 2 days less. But in fact, if I'm a farmer, probably the most interesting for me is this one, because this one yields the same as Norman, but does so in 7 days less. That means I have 7 days more to prepare my fields for rice, which is actually something very, very useful in a farming system. So there are a couple of things here as a researcher that I need to think. Yield might not be the driver. Probably earliness and protein for the millers may be something I should think about more than yield itself. The third one of our investment is the most interesting one. Probably Kachala would have had a chance to say a few words about that, but as I said, we want to transfer this technology through women, through cooperatives that are present at the farm gate, and they are the driver, and they are the extension agent that should drive. That part of the project is not started yet, but we have done already some investigations. So you know, what we are trying to achieve is something quite small. We want to develop 6 new varieties, well fitted for the system. We want to train 10 associations of women, of rural women, for a total of about 100 women, and reach 100 tons of certified seeds. So this is what the project tried to achieve. And if everything falls into place, then we think we're going to be able to touch about 100,000 hectares of wheat production. That is this more than 50,000 farmers. So that would be an impact that the project aims. So just to come to the conclusion of the first year report, the goals that we have set, which were achievable, have been achieved. So that's good. As you can see also in the picture behind me, there's been some difficulties at this. Lake Chad has used a relatively new farm for wheat, which is the Azumbo village in Malum Majori in Jigwa State. That farm has presented some little issues. You see some part of the fields missing here. So there's a need to do a little bit more of a structural investment to ensure that the irrigation and the conditions are better. But this happens, when you use a new farm, it happens. But anyway, this did not prevent our achievements. And for season 23-24, so not this season, but the season after, we are finally able to get into the farmer's field. That's where we want to be. And so I take advantage of having all of you here to say that we will be looking for partners for that time. So hopefully there will be many. And of course, Kachala will let you know, Lake Chad organize open field days between January and February. It will tell you more about this, but it will be very important that the most of you participate, so they can actually, it's a great place to give us feedbacks on what you think about that. And I want to thank you for your attention. Thanks.
Dr. Bassi, thank you so much for that update. For me, the biggest takeaway from everything you said is that we're on track. All the set targets were met, and I think we're moving closer and closer to the target of if you like, wheat production, sustainability and sufficiency in wheat production in Nigeria. So thank you so much for that update. I really like the point about 100 tons of certified seeds as the target, and I believe we can achieve that. And of course, the fact that 10 associations of rural women are being engaged for this. We look forward to seeing how we can make progress with that. Thank you so much. Before we proceed, I just want to acknowledge some of the questions that have started coming through. We would be taking those questions as part of our interactive session later on with our speakers. So please keep them coming. As you listen to the presentations, you may have some questions or comments. Please feel free to share. We certainly would be looking at them as we proceed. But before we go on any further, I'd like to acknowledge a few people that have joined us as we proceeded with today's program. I'd like to acknowledge, first of all, the chairman of the House Committee on Agricultural Colleges and Institutions. He is none other than Alhaji Munir Baba Dan Agundi. Thank you so much for joining us, Honorable, for this event. We also have joining us.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to have you, sir. We also have joining us the president of the Wheat Farmers Association of Nigeria, Alhaji Salim Saleh Muhammad. Thank you so much for your presence with us again this year. All right. So let's move on with the rest of the program now, as I welcome to deliver a few, what should I say, brief remarks to give even further context to what we're discussing today. Dr. Zachary Turaki, he is the Director of Research and Head of Cereals Research at the Lake Chad Research Institute. Dr. Turaki, I would like to now yield the floor to you to deliver your remarks.
Thank you very much, moderator. I'm glad to join in this session Zoom meeting. I'm highly delighted to join the meeting with recognized and distinguished personalities like Mr. Ashish Pandey, who is the MD and Senior Vice President, Olam and Crown Mill. Then I also appreciate to be online with Dr. Filippo Bassi, who is a senior scientist in ICADA, which I respect so much. On the line also is the Honorable Manur Baba Agundi, who is a key person when it comes to wheat, and when we invite him, always he shows interest in terms of wheat. The chairman and president of the Wheat Farmers Association of Nigeria, Salim, I also appreciate being with you on this platform. It gives me pleasure when people discuss wheat, especially the promotion of wheat in Nigeria, because wheat is an important crop that Nigeria has to promote in order to be self-sufficient. We are far, far below marks in terms of wheat. 2% is not enough to be comfortable. And we must, within the shortest period of time, take wheat to more than 50% of self-sufficiency. And it is only through such collaboration and partnership with private sector that we can achieve that. We have had so many partnerships before, dealing with corporate organizations, public organizations, but I must tell you, and I must confess that the present project collaboration on Olam Seed for the Future is one of the best that I have witnessed, if not the best after the SADC and TAT project, which is sponsored by the AFDB. Now, having said that, why did I classify this one as a very, very successful project? Is that from the take of the project, the Institute has enjoyed support in terms of research by the partners providing vehicle, which is an important mobility issue in terms of research. So we are grateful and we want to express our gratitude to Olam for giving us a vehicle, and expect that very soon, and I'm hopeful, I'm always full of faith, if we are dealing with partners that have repute like Olam, that the promises made for providing tractor and planter, which will further spur the project to a higher heights, will be honored. I would also like to talk on two openings that you may wish to explore that we have in Lake Chad Research Institute. Let me say that Lake Chad Research Institute has the mandate for genetic improvement of wheat. It is our national task to promote wheat. But just to say that we also have some things to lend to this project. We have a seed company, quite all right, which is another area of linkage. We have also what we call Helpline Center, which we have upgraded to ICT Center. And we hope that when these are fully brought on board these projects, it will further project the project forward and propel it to success. The Helpline Center is an information dissemination center whereby the farmer will be on his field and you will be seeing and talking to him face to face. The problems of whatever he's encountering on the field is a video chat, so you can see everything the farmer is doing on his field while he is connected. All we require is data, but the center has been upgraded. So I would love to see that this project expand to cover all the value chain of wheat in order to make transformational impact. Once more, I thank you very much and pledge the support of Lake Chad Research Institute to the success of this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Turaki. We certainly appreciate the support. And I think we can go further, as the Chinese proverb says, together. And we look forward to engaging further and making even more progress as we proceed further into this project that I continue to think about the potential impact long-term as we consider the impact of the Russia-Ukraine crisis on food supply and indeed specifically wheat supply across the world. We've seen that impact. And if we can only become more self-sufficient, we'll be better prepared rather for the next crisis. All right, so now we would like to proceed into an interactive conversation, a panel discussion, if you like, and where we'll be taking some of the questions that have been presented to our speakers, and I will also be perhaps leading the way with a few questions of my own. And beyond those that have spoken earlier, I would like to also welcome Mr. Tibrio Chiari, who is the former manager of the Agricultural Value Chains Program in Oromia, Ethiopia. He is joining us for this conversation. I'm sure he has a couple of thoughts to share, given the progress that they have made in that country. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Oromia, and we look forward to your contribution. All right, so let's get started. I would like to perhaps move to Mr. Pandey to give some, provide some further context. So looking back, Mr. Pandey, I wanted to get your perspective on where we're at right now with this project, and when year one of what has been planned as a 10-year program, and what are your early impressions of where we're at in terms of key learnings and your optimism about the future?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for a very nice session. I think it was very informative. It also helped us to get further insights into the update on the project. So look, if we just go back in time, for us it was very critical that Nigeria imports about close to 5.6 million metric tons of wheat. And we wanted to do our own bit and start a journey where we could actually go for localization of wheat in Nigeria, and therefore this project came into being. It's a long journey, I would definitely say. The results are not going to be 1 year or 2 years kind of thing, as Professor Kachala and Philip Oversee also mentioned. In this journey, consistent inputs will be required. And just to give further inputs on that, we are not stopping here. What we are doing is basically we are getting more experts onto our panel. We experts in Australia, for example, where which are also known to be experts in growing wheat, and therefore we are working with the universities and institutes over there. We will try and get more resources, different kind of resources onto this project, because we see this is a long journey for us, next 10 years. And as Olam is heavily invested in Nigeria, it's a company born out of Nigeria. Therefore, our commitment is really infinite on this project. And every passing year, we will try to improvise. We will try to add more resources in all the kind, in terms of people, in terms of financial inputs, in terms of technical inputs, right? Especially from the key countries. So for me, the journey is bright. The journey is going to be long, but it's a bright journey. I think at the end of 10 years or so, we definitely will see a great shift in Nigeria in terms of wheat production.
Sure. Thank you for that. And perhaps we should speak to some people who you could say are a bit ahead of us in that journey. So let's hear from Mr. Chiari, who is joining us to provide some perspective from Ethiopia. And thank you again for joining us this year for this conversation. And I want you to perhaps speak to this point. Despite the ongoing civil war and a record drought in Ethiopia, your country, Ethiopia's wheat production is expected to jump 70% this year, according to some analysts, as it seeks to reduce its reliance on food imports. So what are the factors in your view that are responsible for the growth levels being witnessed in your country?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, and best greeting to everybody. Well, the situation in Ethiopia is quite complicated. There is also an internal disorder, but I think that one main reason for the steep increase is, one side is the demand. There is this huge demand, aggregated demand, and historical demand for wheat, who has created a full range of professionalities. This means that it's not just farmers who are able to produce wheat traditionally, in very traditional way, but also with new technologies. But there is a chain of professionals who aggregate the product, who check the product and provide it to the aggregated market, to the millers and to the processor in general of the wheat, and so also pasta makers. I think this is one key element, that the demand is a driving factor, of course, every time in every context, but this demand must pass through some professionalities. Could not rely on goodwill. The goodwill must be translated in mechanisms in which there is a win-win mechanism at each step. I think this is what is going to be the next steps right now for wheat in Nigeria, how to engage professionals, how to enable these intermediate steps to provide a feedback, positive feedback, backward and upward, as to enable the scaling. Because right now the challenge is scaling. The aggregated demand of Nigeria is tremendous, and let me say tremendous, and this is a big opportunity, a very big opportunity, but this opportunity must be managed by all these actors in agreement among them. I think this is where the challenge is.
All right, thank you very much. So a key learning point clearly is the mechanization and the level of the introduction of technology into what you're doing in Ethiopia. So key learning point for Nigeria as we make further progress. All right, I'd like to now move over to the legislature in our midst, if you like, Alhaji Munir Baba Dan Agundi, who is the chairman of the House Committee on Rural Colleges and Institutions. Alhaji Agundi, thank you so much again for participating in this program today. I want to ask you a question. What in your view, is the role of legislation in driving the synergy in research and development? What have been the learnings in Nigeria? So we're talking about everything from seed systems, mechanization, production, driving productivity, and extension services, training, and so forth. As we try to improve the wheat value chain locally, I wanted to hear your thoughts about legislation. Alhaji Agundi, we cannot hear you. Okay, perhaps he has stepped away for a moment. Okay, perhaps in that case, we should go to the president of the Wheat Farmers Association to give his perspective. Thank you so much for joining us again, sir, for participating in this conversation again this year. And
thank you very much, Ruth.
Okay. So if you can share your perspective on where we're at, the key learnings from the Nigerian experience. We've heard what's happening in Ethiopia, so much good things to learn from that. But what are your thoughts about where we're at in Nigeria right now?
Thank you very much for having me for this meeting once again. And I'm glad and appreciate how Olams are doing things, trying to promote wheat production in the whole world. It's a very just strike that they are trying. And you see, in Nigerian perspectives, we have a lot of issues and challenges, which I'm sure some are similar to other countries that are producing wheat, and some are in the other way side. But to our own perspectives, the most challenging factor of wheat production in Nigeria is sufficiency of high-yielding seed variety, heat-tolerant seed variety. That is the first key challenge, because as rightly said by the presenters, seed is a business, as rightly said by Mr. Philip. If we have a very good quality seed that can go with the tropical aspect of the country, could have been better. That is one. And the other challenging issue is training, that is capacity building of the farmers. The farmers that are engaged into wheat production needs capacity building to assimilate the new innovation technologies that are coming on board. We are at the age of the millennium, of the year 2000 plus, but still farming activity in Iran, in some perspective, even more than 70% of the farming activities are handled traditionally. So we need to, develop the capacity of the farmers to accept new innovation technologies, the use of mechanization or all mechanization tools into agricultural practice. You see, beside having a very good quality seed, you need to have a very good land preparation aspect. The land that is suitable for the wheat farming has to be prepared equitably to go along with the seed that is supposed to be planted. And you can't do a very good land preparation without having mechanization tools to put in place, like tractors for plowing, tractors for harrowing, even tractors for dicing and whatever kind of activity that is going to be practiced. And also, you need to have mechanization facility for planting. Up to now, at this time, as we are talking, our farmers are not conversant to the use of seed planters in planting. Even if they are conversant to that, they don't have the facility, they don't have access to it. So you see, as the world is moving, everything has to be put under mechanization so that the production and the productivity should be enhanced. But in a situation whereby at this stage of time that farmers are even broadcasting, or they are doing some trying to improve from broadcasting to dribbling method, all these are time wasting and time consuming.
Right.
But if we can use like planters to plant, it will give aggregation and it will make the productivity rise higher.
Right, but very briefly, if you can, sir, how can the government and the organized private sector come to the aid of farmers? What are your thoughts on this?
Yes, my thought is if the government can have, as we are trying to do now, we are going to have a strategic plan on wheat development in Nigeria. We want to have an established policy that can be put in place to say for a policy for example, 5, 10, 20 years to come, that this is what Nigeria is trying to develop in wheat, this is what Nigeria is trying to achieve in wheat production. And that policy also has to be backed with legislation so that government in, government out, that policy cannot be tampered. So we need to have a sound policy, strategic plan on what we wanted to achieve on wheat production. That is a basic support. Then secondly, the government will give chance for private investors to come and invest into the wheat subsector by bringing in new improved seeds, all these mechanization tools, as I mentioned earlier, and then giving room, for them to produce for the local consumption of the demand in the country.
Sorry, thank you very much for that. And certainly we look forward to further support from the organized private sector and the government.
Yes.
For the farmers. All right. I certainly have other questions, but I want to make sure that we certainly attend to some of the questions that have come in from the Q&A chat from our audience today. So there is a question here, and some of them are somewhat technical, so I'll perhaps leave this open to those who are involved in the project and some of the, of course, more learned people in this area who are part of the panel. We have a question here about the seedling stage. At what seedling stage was the post-emergence herbicide applied? And I think this, perhaps those who are part of the panel may be able to appreciate this question better than I certainly can. So I was wondering if anyone wanted to chime in on this point concerning the application of herbicides.
Yeah,
yes,
based on
ahead.
the survey, based on the survey we conducted, we actually made to understand that the farmers were actually applying the post-emergence herbicide, which is the 2,4-D, at 3 to 4 weeks after emergence. At 3 to 4 weeks after emergence.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Okay. I will take more questions from the chat, but I want the speaker to chime in. I believe he is with us now. Alhaji Agundi. Yes, I actually called on you earlier, but I hope you can hear me clearly now.
Yes, I can hear you.
I'll pose the question concerning the role of legislation in the conversation that we're having right now. So I was wondering if you can speak briefly to that point.
Okay, thank you very much for this important meeting. You see, like what the president of the Wheat Farmers Association has said, we have had many and very good policies and strategies in this country. I can remember the agricultural transformation agenda. By that agenda, we were able to capture more than 15 to 20,000 farmers. But I think somehow, somewhere now, we are now in a sort of very difficult situation to even understand where the data is. Because the whole agenda has been abandoned and another policy reintroduced. So what I understand from the point of the law or legislation, once you have policies that are good, are excellent, I believe they should be backed by law. So whoever comes before he can say and give an executive order against such laws, it will take some time. There is a process. He will not just do it by any executive yet. But as I said, if we have tried in the agricultural transformation period to legislate and ensure that it was backed by law, but we were not able to do it. I think the executive did not send it to us at that time. So my comments during the validation of the week strategy, I mentioned it to the audience that everybody will come and say this, will come and say that. I even quarreled with the president of the Farmers Association that when he said they have 1.2 million farmers, I asked him whether I'm counted among the farmers, or am I not a farmer? And when did you register me? And you know me as a farmer, as a farmer for the last 25 years. So I think these are some of the disconnections. We need first to put our data of the farmer so that we can plan, we can strategize. Without data, we can't do anything. So what we are doing now, as we agreed as a strategy, is to ensure that what they did for the policy document, I think to me it's something good that we can look at it. And I have said the executive should try to send it to us after presenting it to the, we are going to the National Council of Agriculture by next week. From there, they will approve it, then send it to PEC. Then they will, from PEC, then they will send it to the National Assembly, hopefully for legislation. And that way will ensure we fast track the legislation and ensure that we have something strategically on which and other policies related to agriculture, like the new policy they have just launched. I have forgotten, is it NAPTIP or something like that? So that's what we are trying to collaborate with the executive and all other stakeholders. I think that is my take. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member, for sharing that perspective. No doubt the cooperation and collaboration of legislators is very important in us achieving some of the objectives that we have set with this project. Okay, I want to go now to Ms. Dr. Mala. Dr. Mala, without downplaying the role of agricultural research in crop production, Nigeria has been at its wheat research phase for quite some time now, many will argue. So my question is, how realistic is Nigeria's aspiration for self-sufficiency in wheat production? Because at the end of the day, that is where we want to go with this conversation. So can you just very briefly share your perspective on that, given where we're at now?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. As you rightly mentioned, wheat research and development has been in Nigeria for over 25 years. And the Cherry Research Institute, as of today, we have released 13 wheat varieties, 2 durum, and then 11 bread wheats. So also among the 11 bread wheats, we've also released 2 foreign-fed activities. So in Nigeria, we have 2 environments for wheat production. We have the lowland and then the highland of Mambla Plateau. So the other thing that we need to do is political will, consistent government policies, and then the right project, like the Seed for the Future project. So when we have all those in place, we can give out improved seeds for farmers. Farmers will adopt that, multiply the seeds, and within very few possible time, let's say 4 years or 5 years, we'll achieve at least 50% self-sufficiency.
Sorry, when you say 4 or 5 years, are you saying 4 or 5 years from today?
Yes, like now, Seed for the Future project is a project for 10 years.
Yes.
It just started last year.
Yes.
So our hope, we are optimistic. By the middle of this project, Nigeria will attain 50% self-sufficiency by going by the trends we are going. We started with 10 kilo. We started with just 1 kilo of seeds. We multiply 1 kilo, we got 10 kilo. This season, we're going to multiply 10 kilo to get 100 kilo.
Okay.
So going by that, in 4, 5, 6 years, we are hopeful that we'll achieve at least 50%.
I need to come back to you, and I really need a short answer to this.
Yes.
It sounds good that, yes, in 5 years, we may be at 50% self-sufficiency, but we don't know what the world will look like in 5 years. Potentially, what can be done to accelerate that rate? Or are you suggesting that that is perhaps the quickest rate we can go, given the nature of this crop?
Yes, I think what can be done is all the critical stakeholders need to come together, especially the farmers, the mailers, and the researchers. For them to come together, look inward, and then practice the best agronomic practices that is in place. What is missing now by farmers? Farmers do adhere strictly to the best agronomic practices. You said we have released MBM Aja recently this year, Norman 2017, and so on and so forth. And all of those varieties, they have a potential yield of 7 to 8 tons per hectare. How much are the farmers getting today? They are getting less than 2 tons or 2.5 tons. So if a variety has a potential, it can go up to 7 tons. So what we need to do is to adhere strictly. We have to plant early. The optimum planting window, we must stick to it. The fertilizer application, we must stick to it. The best irrigation. So from this, our survey, we are made to understand that the best irrigation period is in the night, not in the day. Most of our farmers irrigating during the daytime. For you to achieve optimum yield, you have to irrigate during the night. And farmers do stick to 7 days irrigation periods. This depends on your environment, depends on the variety you're using. Not every day you just irrigate 7 days. So these are the issues that we need to address. And how do we address all these issues? By training the farmers. Like we have, my director rightly mentioned, we have a headline center where we can reach to farmers online and telling them this is what to do, all that. So by doing this, we maintain all this tempo. Within 4 or 5 years, we'll achieve that, definitely.
Right. Okay. I'm delighted to see that Dr. Yusuf Rumun, the Commissioner for Agriculture in Kano State, has joined us now. Honorable Commissioner, thank you so much for participating in this. And I believe that you've been listening to the conversation thus far. I just want to give you an opportunity to also chime in to share your perspective, especially from the context of what's happening in Kano State. Dr. Rumun? Dr. Rurum, can you hear me? All right. You may need to unmute yourself, sir. We cannot hear you right now. Okay, hopefully we can hear from him shortly. We're having a small technical hitch there. Dr. Room, can you hear us? We're still unable to hear you right now. Okay, if you don't mind, Commissioner, we'll come back to you shortly. And hopefully we can fix that issue and hear from you shortly. But in the meantime, I would like to take a look at a question that has come through in the chat. And I want to pose this to some of our speakers today. I would like to get perspective on this. What are the inputs in wheat seed production responsible for its high cost of production in Nigeria right now? Let us try and unpack that, because I think that point was made in one of the earlier presentations, that even though, yes, we are producing, but we're not producing at a competitive price point in the context of the international markets.
Yes.
So I was wondering if someone may want to speak to this.
Let me say something.
Yes, go ahead.
Wheat are predominantly being produced in Nigeria under irrigation. Anything irrigation is capital intensive. This is number one. And then secondly, the cost of fertilizer in the market is just too much. A bag of 50 kilo of NPK, the good one, 1550, is sold at the market today at 30,000 naira. Any brand of urea, you buy it at 25,000 naira. And you need at least 6 bags of NPK and 3 bags of urea. So You know how much it takes. And now look at the cost of fuel in the market today. You need irrigation cycle from 13 to 15 cycle for you to achieve. Will
I be wrong to say that irrigation is perhaps the biggest issue there?
Yes. Irrigation is the biggest issue, coupled with other.
Of course, all the other points that you've made are very relevant.
Like fertilizer, chemicals, and all that. So, in comparison, those things that actually make wheat production so much capital intensive compared to other parts of the country. In other words, like in Europe, in the Middle East, wheat are mostly produced under irrigation, under the rainfeds.
Yes.
Yeah, so that makes their own is little bit lower compared to ours. Ours is completely under irrigation.
Understood. Yes. All right, I do believe we've been able to sort out that issue.
Do you mind if I intervene 1 second here?
Okay, very briefly, if you can, please, so I go to the commissioner.
Yeah, it is true that the price of selling wheat at the moment in Nigeria is very, very high. But there's a reason why it is lower also abroad. Wheat cultivation in most of the country is subsidized, right? So the government takes charge of part of that cost. And that's something that I don't think Nigeria is doing at the moment. And it's subsidized in different ways. Subsidized either by the transport, right? Moving is expensive cost. It's subsidized in the form of inputs. The fertilizer gets sold at a lower price because the government takes charge of part of that cost. Or the import costs, there's levy that are imposed on these elements that typically governments take away. The fuel used in agriculture is normally subsidized to the level of 50% by most governments. So if Nigeria wants to sell and produce wheat at a price that is competitive to the international market price, then some of these elements will be taken in consideration.
Thank you very much. So you are unearthing some of the big issues that need to be addressed if we really want to be globally competitive. Thank you so much for adding that to those responses earlier. On that note, I want to now move over to the Honorable Commissioner. I do believe we've been able to sort out the technical challenges. So, Commissioner Rurum, if we can have you also chime in the conversation today.
Thank you very much. From the discussion, I've noticed all is about policy. We will make sure that from our own part, we submitted the policy to be captured in our submission in the next week agricultural Council of Agriculture coming up next week in Jos. We have a Council of Agriculture that will have engagement and deliberation. So we'll make sure that we have submitted the policy document on that. We will also make sure that we invited private sectors to come and invest in this seed production Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. And perhaps you may even intervene later on as we proceed with this conversation. All right. I would like to now take this to, I want to come back to you, Dr. Filippo Bassi, and speak a little more specifically at some of the challenges that we're encountering with these Seeds for the Future project so far. And how has the project been able to navigate those challenges to deliver in the first year? I was actually quite, I was happy and, should I say, pleasantly surprised to hear that we're on track for the first year, given all the challenges we know that we faced over this past 1 year, and indeed the last 2 to 3 years. So can you just speak to some of the challenges and how we've been able to navigate that?
Sure, with great pleasure. And there's a couple of elements that I would like to add to the conversation. I mean, one of the challenges you can see behind me, right? When you see a field that looks like this, means this part here will not produce any wheat. Those parts, on the other hand, by the way, will produce quite nicely. So how does that happen? That happens when a station is unknown. Maybe there was a precedent here, soil was compact or some type of issues. So obviously the project is trying to improve the capacity of Lake Chad. You know, we heard about the car. We will hear soon hopefully by a planter that will help them do the activities and so forth. So there's a number of elements that need to be put in place, structural investments that Olam is taking charge of. And so, you know, when you talk about wheat research and the researchers don't even have a planter, you know, that there's still quite a bit of ABC to be done. And that's what the project is doing. And the reason why we are able to be on track, I think, is because we have been very small in our goals. We have set the bar very high, but in 10 years' time. So that gives us enough time. You know, when Kachala says we want to reach 50% of seed independence, seed, by the way, we talk about seed, yes, which is a big difference. Huh? You know, wheat independence is something completely different.
Right.
Seed independence means that the country is capable of selecting their seeds, producing the seeds for all the farmers, and does not need to buy abroad, which is what is happening currently in Nigeria. You know, a lot of seeds are being bought from abroad.
Understood.
So that's something we want to achieve in 10 years' time, and that's something that I think is doable. There's one element, by the way, that I want to put on the table, if you don't mind. The people connected in this chat, I think they are acceptably familiar with wheat cultivation to be able to answer most of the questions that we see on the chat, right? You know, how much herbicide, when do I use it, fertilizer. So first of all, one word about herbicide. Nigeria does not have herbicide specific for wheat. To have herbicide specific for wheat, you need to import some, test, certify it, include it into your legal chemicals that can be imported, and then commercialize it. That's important. Another, to bring down the cost of that wheat, by the way. Another element that needs to be important is, how do farmers know? How do you tell farmers what is the best practice? And that's what the project is trying to do. It's trying to go at the village level. So we will be able to tell only those farmers, unfortunately, not all of them, but those farmers will be informed. And that's the size of what we're trying to achieve.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bassi, for that. You've given great insight into the situation on the ground. We need to begin to wrap this conversation up very soon, but I want to give Mr. Turaki an opportunity to also chime in, and then also take a couple of questions that have come in through the Q&A field. Mr. Turaki, very briefly, you can speak to this. Looking at the Olam Agri Research Partnership approach to wheat development in Nigeria, in your view, I want you to reflect on this. What does the future hold for research investments in the wheat value chain, especially the wheat value chain?
Very good. Thank you very much for once more bringing me on. The partnership between Lake Chad Research Institute and Olam, not only in terms of general research to come up with the best variety, but will come up with the best variety as well as also promote seed in Nigeria. There are many challenges that the seed sector has been facing in Nigeria over time that has built into this level. The relationship between Lecture Research Institute and Olam is not enough to drive a robust seed system in the country. We need to engage other stakeholders also. There are many seed companies in Nigeria, and to our rating, we know that 13 have shown great interest in promoting wheat seed in Nigeria. So as we expand in this project, we would like to see these seed companies also integrated. Now, Lecture Research Institute has also the mandate for promoting wheat and some resources also for promoting wheat.
Yes.
Pulling these resources together along with the assistance or intervention by Olam will definitely synergize and project the seed sector forward. Let me say that wherever success is to be recorded in the area of seed, there must be that element of mechanization.
Yes.
In fact, it's not only seed. In the entire production sector of wheat, what we are missing in terms of competitiveness is that element of mechanization. If you don't mechanize, your cost of production will be higher than it's obtained elsewhere.
Yes.
And as we drive forward, I think this mechanization element has to be built in. Then the psyche of our farmers is another thing we have to work on.
Yes.
But they say that a good commodity sells itself without even advertising.
Right.
But our farmers are used to recycling the seed they produce, whether it is of low quality, whether it has degenerated, whether it has a lot of mixture, whether they are in that particular habit. So,
right, Dr. Turaki, I
the seed
apologize for
market-
jumping in. I am so sorry, but because of time, we really need to begin to wrap this up. I needed to jump in there, but I think some of the comments you've made are very valuable and very well taken. But honestly, I really I'm pressed for time now, and I do have to wrap this up. So thank you so much for that contribution. And I also want to acknowledge the great questions that we're seeing from the Customs Agricultural Intelligence participants. I understand all the way from Canada. Thank you so much for all your questions. And obviously, we've not had the opportunity to go through all of them. So here's what I am going to appeal to some of our speakers to do. I mean, because you can do this. If you don't mind typing in responses to those questions that we have not been able to take, so that our participants can really get the full value of your knowledge of this program. I see quite a few questions there that I think will be great if we can get to. But on that note, while that is happening, I would like to welcome to deliver a few closing remarks as we begin, and of course, thanks as we begin to wrap up today's program. None other than the Managing Director of Crown Flour Mills and the Country Head Olam Agri Nigeria, Mr. Ashish Pandey. I'd like to hand over to you now to deliver your closing remarks.
Yeah, thank you. Once again, it's been a fantastic session for us. It's a lot of learning, which we get to hear from experienced peoples from all walks of life, both locally and also internationally. Once again, I'll say, for us, it's this journey. It's just a journey right now. And we are very much committed to the wheat value chain of Nigeria. We will commit resources, all kinds of resources in the next coming years. We know it's not going to be a single year's job. but we are committed in terms of seed development, in terms of inputs for the farmers, in terms of making all the environment right as a corporate to encourage farmers to cultivate the wheat in Nigeria. Thank you very much, and I would really encourage more inputs from you. We are happy to always listen to you for your guidance and for your inputs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pandey, for that. And again, I want to remind our speakers, there are quite a few questions that we haven't had opportunity to get through. So if you can, I see that some have already been answered. Thank you so much to those who have taken, especially I can see Dr. Bassi has been chiming in there. So please, if you can, at some point, look at the Q&A field and respond to some of the questions if you can. But as we begin to round up, I'd like to now appeal to all our speakers. If you can take a moment to turn on your video cameras, we would like to take a photograph. If we were in person, I'll probably have all of you standing in front of the stage and the paparazzi would come forward and take the pictures. But since this is virtual, I think we can do the next best thing. So if you can please all turn on your video cameras and try and frame it properly as we take a quick photograph. Thank you so much. And again, as we do that, I would like to remind all our speakers that if you can, please do your best to respond to the questions in the Q&A field before we wrap up today's session. All right, I think we have pretty much everyone's camera on. Dr. Turaki, if you can please turn on your camera so that we can take a quick photograph. Thank you so much. And I believe I am going to, yes, we have you now. So I guess on 3, we'll have the Olam team take the photograph. On 3, that's 1, 2, 3. All right, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for participating in today's event. You know how it is with many of these events. We are pressed for time, but we wanted to keep this quite interactive, but also an efficient program. So on that, I'd like to say thank you again to everyone who participating as we round up with this appreciation video that you will see playing on screen now. Thank you so much again, and we look forward to having you at the next event.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you and bye-bye.
Thank you for
Thank you.
San Calori? No, eso.